Hello everyone, welcome once again to the Smithville Area Chamber video of their members, which is done by the broadcast and journalism students at Smithville High School. Today we're fortunate to have retired Lieutenant Colonel Dewayne Knott. Dewayne, we appreciate you being here today. If you would, give us a little bit of your background up until you retired.
Well, it started out kind of rough. I was born on Mother's Day in a house in a little town of about 250 people in Nebraska, and it was decided it was time for me to come. So my dad went to go get to the town doctor, and it turns out he was out fishing. And we didn't have cell phones then, so he came back to the house with the doctor's nurse, and she said, "I'm not delivering this baby without the doctor here." And she tied my mother's legs together with a dish towel. And my father saw that and said, "That's not going to work." So he untied the dish towel, birthed me, and I showed, well, my mother birthed me, but he assisted, and there I was. From there, moved to Iowa, raised up in Iowa, went to Ames High School at home of Iowa State University, graduated and attended Iowa State University, transferred to University of Northern Iowa because I had to take a foreign language in college at that time, and no thanks. So I went to a different university where I knew I could graduate. I graduated in 1969. And at the height of the Vietnam War, I graduated on a Saturday afternoon. And everybody's heard the story about how the government, you know, it takes forever to get anything. Well, on Monday morning in the mail was an envelope from the Selective Service System that said, "Greetings." And I knew what greetings meant during that period of time. It meant that I just got drafted. I guess the only reason I didn't get that letter on Sunday is because they don't deliver mail on Sunday. So the government can be pretty darn efficient. I took off with two of my buddies that lived on either side of us in married student housing, and I knew what I was going to do with my life. I had a job lined up. I was going to be a school teacher. But that didn't happen. I had to quit my job before I even got a full day's work in, and two fellows on either side of me happened to be on the University of Northern Iowa football team. We're going to join the Air Force and fly airplanes because that's all the Air Force people do, you know. And we went down to the recruiter and took the test. Well, passed the written test, extensive, a 4-hour written test. Mm-hmm. They bussed us up to Omaha, Nebraska to Offutt Air Force Base to do our physical exam. One of the guys didn't make it because he blew out his knee in football, but two of us did. And I didn't make the physical cut because I wore glasses, old Four Eyes over here. And if you wore glasses, you can't be a pilot. But my buddy, he didn't. He became a pilot. He flew F-4 aircraft, but his aircraft went down and he was killed. I miss him dearly, leaving a wife and two children. Dennis Haley was his name. He gave his life for this country. I went to basic training at Lackland Air Force Base as a slick sleeve. I can't say that I was happy about that. I mean, after all, I was a college graduate. What am I doing being an Air Force grunt? Well, I was. So I had a little bit of an attitude because my life was clearly ruined at that point. My first assignment was at Rantoul, Illinois, near Champaign-Urbana. And from there, when I got out of technical school, I went to a station at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. What a lovely spot that was to be. Skiing 30 minutes one direction in the mountains in the summer where it's cool. 30 minutes in the other direction in the winter, and you're in the desert in t-shirt and shirt sleeves. It was delightful. I was part of a technical skill that was very, very new and cutting edge at the time. Well, it still kind of is, working with high-level radiation materials, a machine that generated 10 million electron volts of radiation, and there was only 3 of them on the planet. The Soviet Union had one, Sweden had one and the United States had one. The X-ray head on that machine was about that big around, and it got so hot it had to be cooled with liquid nitrogen. But we were X-raying Minuteman missiles, which were intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads. And we were pointing them at Russia, and Russia was pointing them at us. It was the height of the Cold War. The Vietnam War was still going on. Things were not good internationally at the time. From Hill Air Force Base, I was then stationed at Kelly Air Force Base in Texas. Now I'm no longer working with solid propellant missiles, but I'm working with B-52s and other aircraft that are being used in Vietnam, and they would fly into the air base, shot up and messed up, and I performed work on those. And a brand new aircraft called a C-5A Galaxy, which is the largest aircraft on the planet, was just coming off the manufacturing lines, and they only made 99 of them. And I had the opportunity to do work on those aircraft. They are so large that I could walk standing up inside the wing through the fuel tanks, clear out past the second outboard engines. They're big. They're 11 stories high, and they fly. I don't know how they fly, but they do. While at Kelly Air Force Base, I heard this new word being bandied around, this environmental something or other. There were people who were calling themselves environmentalists. And I thought, well, that's a neat word. What do they do? I checked it out, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So I took a couple courses at the University of Texas San Antonio campus in this environmental thing, just because I thought I was curious. Well, I got more than curious and decided, well, I really want to learn more about this. So I asked my commander if I could take a little time off my Air Force duties, go to school and get my master's degree. Turns out that the Air Force had just such a program, and I could take a year off from wearing the uniform. And I did so. My hair grew long down to my shoulders. I didn't shave. I had a beard. I looked a mess. I went to school and got a master's degree, and put together my thesis on focusing on energy, because that was 1972, 73, 74, when we were in an energy crisis, if you may recall. Oh, Ed, you're not that old. Or do you recall?
I do recall.
Yeah. So so now I owe the Air Force another year, because they gave me a year. I went back into the Air Force. They wanted me to stay in. I wanted to be an officer and not an enlisted person. I felt I had the talents and the skill sets that the Air Force could use, because the Air Force was rather environmentally tuned in at the time as well. They said no, and I said, well, I really can't continue then if I can't earn my commission. So I got out of the Air Force, found a job here in Missouri, in Jefferson City, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as a civilian. However, I maintained my military affiliation by remaining a member of the Air Force National Guard over in St. Louis, and continued that. I went to work in a cutting edge program, water quality program with the Corps of Engineers that was engaged in protecting wetland resources, riparian resources. Riparian is the stream bank along rivers and streams, and overall water quality and navigation. And what a joy that was, because oftentimes biologists wind up being, they want to be out there with the bugs and the muck and the mud and the critters. They wind up being a desk biologist. That was not my lot. I was in the muck and the bugs and the critters and the fish and you name it, and explored caves in Missouri that had never been mapped, helped with mapping, discovered 2 or 3 species of insects that had never been found before in these caves and other places. What what a tremendous opportunity that was for me to actually be a working field biologist. From there, I went to the Kansas City District Office in Jefferson City. I went to Kansas City District Office and was engaged in water quality permits. From there, the Region 7 Environmental Protection Agency was located here in Kansas City, and I transferred from the Corps of Engineers into the Environmental Protection Agency and was a National Environmental Policy Act wonk. Engaged in many trials and testimonies, depositions, things of that nature, and eventually retired from the EPA upon my return from Iraq, because, as I said, I kept my affiliation with the Air National Guard. I had now transferred from the St. Louis unit to the St. Joseph unit, and was deployed many times with them. Guatemala on a mission to provide health care. I worked in the medical clinic as vice commander and as chief public health officer. Deployed to Germany and England and Spain and Italy, England, the Azores, all over the United States, Hawaii, Alaska, you name it. And then came the oil well fires in Kuwait, and we were ordered to report on a Sunday morning. We did. They flew a handful of us out to Travis Air Force Base in California to backfill the active duty members who had been deployed to Kuwait. So we just sat down at their desks and performed their tasks and job. Well, after about 4 weeks at Travis Air Force Base, the phone rang on my desk, and it was the Pentagon calling, and they said, is this, at that time I was a captain, I think, or a major. I don't know what I was, it doesn't matter. And I said, yes, sir, ma'am. And they said, well, we need a mission to Kuwait. Well, that wasn't in my playbook. And I said, well, what is it you're needing? And they said, well, we're putting together a civilian team of a member from NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, the U.S. Public Health Service, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Act, a member, and an environmental policy or environmental protection agency team member, one other that I'm not remembering, and you as a public health officer in the Air Force. And I said, okay. I said, and our mission is, and they told me that the mission is to set up remote sensing devices to measure the atmosphere and air quality as a result of over 900 oil well fires that Saddam Hussein had set in Kuwait. Off we went. That was interesting because I was now with a team of 6 people who had never had a uniform on in a combat or war zone, were scared beyond belief, didn't have any credentials, had nothing, but yet we needed to penetrate Kuwait and set these devices up. And we had 10 of them. They were called PM10 meters to measure air quality. In the meantime, the government sent up a space shuttle. You were too young to remember this, but Ed, I'm sure that you do. On the news, it was suggested that because of the tremendous amount of smoke these oil well fires were emitting, it was going to have a global impact, that this would circle the globe, it would probably drop the temperature 1 or 2 degrees for a while, and impact air quality globally. Didn't know that, but the scientists were pretty sure of it. So in an effort to determine what is the air quality on the ground versus what is the air quality measured by sensors on the space shuttle in space, if we have real-time communication from a ground crew taking measurements on the ground, with a space shuttle crew that have sensors measuring the atmosphere at the same time from that elevation, then we wouldn't have to send teams out in the future to do this sort of thing. We could do it remotely from space. So we had direct ground contact on special communication systems with the shuttle, so we knew what they were doing, they knew what we were doing, and we made these measurements. When we were done, we set the PM10 meters up throughout Kuwait. I could only get one other person on that team to go do that because there were landmines everywhere. And so we very carefully, we flipped a coin, fair's fair, and one of us would walk first with the meter, the other one would follow in his exact footsteps, and then we would set the meter up, return, and use our same footsteps coming back, and then we alternated that. We got them set up. I could tell you many stories of what we had to do to get into the country, and I will say this time the news got it right. At noon, we drove with headlights on, and if we wanted to read a map, you had to have a flashlight at noon in order to see. That's how dark it was. It was incredible. Your circadian rhythm went off. You lost all sense of timing. It was quite an experience. Came back from that, sat down at my desk at EPA, and about 6 months later, my phone rings again. By that time, I think I was a major. Is this Major Knott? And I said, yeah. Say, we put together a list, and your name came up. And I said, what list? And they said, well, we were looking for someone with environmental experience, someone with clinical public health experience, someone who had military experience, and someone who worked for the Environmental Protection Agency. And I said, oh, did you now? I said, how long was that list? Well, it was your name was on it. And I said, what? And they wanted me to go over to Kuwait and act as environmental liaison between the U.S. government and the Kuwaiti government with the State Department. So I worked out of the embassy for several months and was detailing the biology recovery from the oil well fires. They were all out by now. I had occasion the first time I was there with the civilian team to dive. I'm a diver. And I had an opportunity to dive because I wanted to see what the impact was on the floor of the Gulf. And that first go around was this huge, massive oil globules undulating across the floor, gobbling up everything, and there was no life. 6 months later, I found myself back there, so I went down. I went down again. Fish had returned, crustaceans had returned, the oil was gone. I was amazed at how quick our Earth can recover. Likewise, the biology in the desert, plant life was recovering and doing well. Came back from that assignment, lots of adventures there. Next thing you know, I got orders to Iraq. Went to Iraq to a combat field hospital. That was a difficult time. I would do it all over again, and returned from that duty in Iraq. And quite frankly, I was messed up. I had lost weight. I wasn't wanting to be around people very much. People were asking me questions, which was fine because you don't know, you're curious, you want to know. There's somebody that's been there, what's it really like? I get it. I guess the hardest question is that, did you kill anybody? Did you shoot anybody? And I don't know where that comes from out of people's heads, but I get it. Anyway, it was time for me to move on because I wasn't doing the best job that I could at my job anymore because my mind was not there. So I chose to retire at age 60. I also retired from the Air National Guard at age 60 with 38 years of uniformed service. And within all that, I've been in several motion pictures, I've directed live stage shows, I've written live stage, I've acted a number of times, Had a great conversation with Henry Kissinger one day when I bumped into him in Washington. I sat on the National Air Force Public Health Council at the Pentagon. Just an interesting life. You know, when they say it's suggested to you, may you live in interesting times. I've certainly lived in interesting times and an interesting career. That's for sure. I'm a Lewis and Clark reenactor. And participated in the 200th anniversary Lewis and Clark expedition, day for day for day for day for day to the West Coast and back. I had seen 2,000 or 3,000 miles of the rivers clear up to Yankton before with my job with the Corps and the EPA. I wanted to see the wild Missouri, you know, out in the Dakotas and Montana. But wouldn't you know, that's when I got my orders to go to Iraq, so there I went.
Well, you have definitely served your country well, my friend.
Thank you.
So, post-retirement, what would you say has probably been the most challenging thing you've been doing? And tell us a little bit about what that's been.
Post-retirement, well, on paper it's retirement, but I'm not sure that I'm all that retired. I really didn't want anything to do with the American Legion in town. Everybody knows that that's just a rowdy bunch out there, and all they do is tell lies about the wars that they were never in, and had nothing I wanted to do with it. And I showed up one day and I found it to be quite the opposite. And the next thing I know, I was asked if I would be commander. I'm not too bright. I said yes. And as a result, the post was in trouble financially. We had over $500,000 owed on our facility out there off of Highway 92. We got those things turned around and established several programs, energized the membership, and became a member of the community. In fact, the American Legion and its families. There's the Sons of the American Legion, the Riders of the American Legion itself, which is the veterans, and the Women's Auxiliary. Between those four groups out there, there's upwards of $25,000 to $26,000 put back into the community, and more specifically, the school system for programs, and this is every year. You know, $22,000 to $27,000 a year, depending on whether COVID moved through the area or not. And the post is active, of course, in Veterans Affairs. We take care of families. For instance, if there's been a fire a while back, 2 or 3 years ago, there was tornadoes. We were out there with chainsaws of people we didn't even. That's not the point. The point is to serve veterans, serve your community, and serve the youth. And I think I'm no longer a commander. I sit on the board, but you know, nobody listens to me anymore because my ideas are old. Can you imagine that? But they're all good ones because they're my ideas. And then to serve further, there was an opportunity to work with the Smithville Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sitting on that board. I've always had an interest in history, so I'm on the Smithville Historical Society board. And then there is an active organization called Valor Ranch, and our mission is to care for veterans who have lost their way and are trying to transition back into society and center themselves. And we're on our way of reaching the goal of raising enough funds to buy a sizable chunk of ground to provide housing, clothing, food, counseling, and help for veterans, utilizing in a safe environment, utilizing large animal therapy and other modalities to help them on their way. Temporary, maximum 18 months. And within that, a lot of speech making. I've written a book, which is available on Amazon, by the way. can't say it's all that great a book, but some people like it. And it comes from the point of Native American point of view as of the Lewis and Clark expedition, as seen from the eyes of a young Native American and these strange-looking people with strange clothes and hair on their face. So it's a different way of looking at the Lewis and Clark expedition. Just busy, busy, busy. I could go on and on, but I won't.
Well, Dewayne, having retired from the federal government myself, I can appreciate everything that you've done. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
So, at this point, you've gathered a lot of experience in life. What would be a couple things that you would tell the next generation so that they can begin to formulate their success?
And I guess of those that are highest in my mind are integrity, honesty, and dedication in every way, and always maintain curiosity, never stop learning, and humor.
Again, everyone, thank you so very much for being here today. On behalf of the Smithville School District, Smithville High School Class Broadcast and Journalism, Integrated Financial Solutions of Kansas City, and the Jamison Edwards Group, thank you, and we look forward to having you back.